I'm joined here by Mr. Brent Gibson.
All right, let's
Game
go,
Director
man.
For Diablo 4.
New Diablo
I know
announcement.
Before we have our big show, you wanted to talk a little bit about Vessel of Hatred and what's to come.
Yeah, this is a really big week. The fact that we're finally on the doorstep of shipping Vessel of Hatred is a bit surreal. We've been working on it for a very long time. You know, over the course of the last 5 seasons, so much has changed. And we're excited to talk about some of those details today. Everything kicks off with our epic journey through Nahantu, where we're going to be telling the next chapter of Mephisto. And it doesn't really stop there. We haven't talked about it much yet, but we've actually created a custom quest at the end of the story that leads those players who haven't gotten to endgame will get to endgame.
That's awesome.
Along the way, you're also going to find brand new ways to play with the Kuros Undercity. We've talked about this time attack dungeon. That's super cool. We'll go into more detail on that today. We have our co-op PvE experience with the Dark Citadel. For those hardcore players that like playing with friends, you're going to have something really cool there. And we also have brand new ways of gaining power. Whether you're hiring mercenaries and leveling them up, or finding our new powerful runes that create Runewords to socket into your gear, you're going to have a lot more ways to actually alter the builds that you've been playing with all this time. So at the end of all this, we have the star of our show, our class that wants to go fast, the Spiritborn, which everybody got a sneak peek at that quite a while ago, and we have been polishing it and getting it ready to make sure that it's the most fun it can be at launch.
Yeah, and it's great because we're actually going to be going through all these aspects today in the live stream with our kind of our subject matter experts across each of them. So I know, as we mentioned, next week the Vessel of Hatred will actually be shipping and be released to everyone. Right now the plan is for it to be out on October 8th, and that is still very much the plan. Still the plan. We actually did release a map earlier this week in our What You Need to Know blog.
It's actually going to be on the 7th for a lot of us.
Pretty much contains exactly when
North America.
Each of the release dates are going to be, but players can actually end up doing early download right now on PC Battle.net. We do have early download coming up for console this weekend on the 5th, so there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe, a lot of excitement going on. The other thing that we did talk about as well is Twitch Drops. We do have a Twitch Drops campaign that is actually starting at the launch of Vessel of Hatred. It's actually going to be starting on October 8th in Pacific time, so it's about like 12, 16 hours, somewhere around there afterwards, but there's some really cool back pieces, really cool weapons that you can earn, and it goes throughout the whole entire month of October through like that first early part of November. We also have a Support a Streamer program this time around, which is really cool because Support a Streamer actually really helps out some of the smaller streamers that are actually really wanting to, stream Diablo 4, which is really great. If you gift 2 subs for, or if you actually purchase 2 subs across any streamer that is streaming across Diablo 4 and has this enabled, you'll end up receiving the mount that we actually just showed right there. And then if you do an additional 2, you actually get the mount armor as well. So it's a really cool way of helping out some of the smaller and mid-sized streamers out there that really benefit from some of these programs. And it's great to see all these new faces as they actually jump into Vessel of Hatred. The next thing we do also want to talk about is a cool promotion that we're actually doing with Trolley here in the US. Trolley actually makes some candy. So they're like Sour Bright crawlers and things like that. There's actually some really cool weapon skins available if you actually purchase Trolley specific products here in the US.
That's really cool.
We actually have them here on set, but you can see all the cool weapon skins. But if you actually purchase these, and you'll see that they're clearly marked with like Diablo 4, they got the Spiritborn on them, and you can actually end up taking a photo of your receipt, going to a specific site, and then you'll end up getting kind of the rewards in game. And you also have a chance of actually winning an Xbox too, which is really cool. So, and this is a cool promotion that I think Xbox is actually doing across multitudes of titles, including like World of Warcraft, for instance, because this was actually going on with the War Within here at Blizzard. So, yeah, like if you're in the US, look for Trolley products. Thankfully, we have a bunch of bags here, so expect me to actually be eating these throughout the stream.
We've had like 7 bags in the last 2 days.
Yeah, as we've been like prepping for the stream, like this has been my whole entire diet. Actually, no, I've been eating normal food, but at the same time, this is like my kryptonite right here. So expect me to be eating these throughout the stream. It's my favorite stream because we have snacks now. So I'm like, this is perfect. This is perfect. But one thing, again, we wanted to mention, which is the release date. And I think we have a release date map here. So yeah, as you guys can see, on October 7th in Irvine at 4 p.m. Pacific, or Pacific time, or California time, if you want to say it, is when the actual expansion is going to be launching. This is a global launch, so everyone is coming out at the same time. The world is round, so you can't get everyone in on October
the most important
8th,
one. My
and
face
so that's why there's
Here we
some
go.
in
So
on
yeah,
October
4 p.m.
7th, but we
That's
wanted to make
important,
sure that we
like
could
time.
get as many people
For
in on October
NA
8th, and
West.
of course a little earlier on October 7th, but everyone's coming out at the exact same time. So looking forward to everyone jumping in. We do have an action-packed show today, a lot of stuff to cover. We are going to be hitting up on the patch 2.0 PTR changes first, is first up in the agenda. Because we have so many things to share, I will note this is our 20th live stream for Diablo 4 that we've ever done, which is really cool. And this is also our first time we're actually streaming on TikTok. We already stream on X, we stream on Twitch, and we stream on YouTube. So this is kind of a nice momentous occasion. But because of how much content we have and how many guests we have, we are going to say that we will have some small little breaks while we actually mic new people up, bring them into the studio, and then swap
this is
them
gonna
out
be a long,
for other
long
things.
stream.
But we are going to be talking first about patch 2.0 PTR and the feedback that we actually received from players. And then separately, we're also going to be talking about Season 6, Season of Hatred Rising. And separately, we will finish off the show with all the Vessel of Hatred features and going into a little bit more of a deeper dive, something that you were talking about, Brent. So.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I mean, we have so many people coming in that we're having to pack them in rows.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You're gonna see multiple levels of people in the studio. So we're gonna take a quick break while we get the first group in for our patch 2.0 PTR feedback overview. So we'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
PTR learnings from patch 2.0 PTR, which we had earlier this month. Super beneficial. PTRs have been great for us since we've started actually hosting them for Diablo 4. And of course, this one was a very, very big one because we have a lot of big changes coming with Vessel of Hatred in Season 6. But I know we want to jump straight into it. So, Aislinn, I know you're going to start us off and talk about some progression changes.
Yes, I am.
All right, let's see what the changes are.
Yeah, like you said, Adam, let's jump.
Oh, you actually, before we do that, sorry. I just realized no one knows who we are.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they know who I am. There we go. There. I was just like, wait a minute. Of course, we have some familiar faces, but if you guys want to do quick intros.
Yeah, hi. I'm Colin. I'm a lead designer.
Hey, I'm Aislinn. I'm a systems designer.
Hi, I'm Charles. I'm a class designer.
Hey y'all, I'm Anthony. I'm an associate class designer.
Awesome. Great. There we go. Now we got everyone settled. Aislinn, do you want to talk about some of the progression changes?
Yes, absolutely. So, Adam, like you said, the PTR has been just fantastic for us. It's given us so much data, and the feedback you guys give is just pivotal to us launching in the state we want to see the game in. And, you know, everyone wants to see the game in. And so, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some changes we've made because of it. So first of all, monster intensity. Something we saw in the early game was people weren't noticing the changes in monster intensity because people were skipping through difficulties fairly quickly. And so we've decided to move monster intensity from scaling over normal, hard, expert, and penitent to scaling over torment 1 through 4. Because you're going to be progressing through torments a little bit slower, so you're going to be able to feel the intensity changes, I think, a little more potently.
Yeah, there's a bit more jumps, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the intensity system was essentially monsters just become a little bit more reliable in their damage.
Right.
They start to predict your movement a little bit more on the projectiles.
Yes.
It's not a massive change, but it should sort of make the monsters feel a little bit more aggressive and dangerous.
Yeah, they just become a little more lethal, I think, ultimately, beyond numerical changes. Second up I want to talk about is one that I'm really, really happy and excited about, actually, is that elites, unique elites, and super elites are 3 different types of elites you can actually fight, if you know that or not. That's the thing. And previously, they all did very different amounts of damage from one another. Like, for example, a super elite might deal actually 2 times the amount of damage of a normal elite. And what that was causing was when an elite spawned an affix, like lightning enchanted, or poison, or whatever, the super elites would do 2 times more damage with those affixes, but you didn't really have any way to tell. right? There was no way to tell if an affix was spawned by an elite or a super elite. And so kind of seemingly randomly, an affix might deal 2 times more damage to you out of nowhere. And so what we've done is we've normalized the damage that all of these different elite types actually deal, so that when you do see the affixes that they're spewing out, you can expect the damage you're going to receive. Like, you know how much it's going to hit you for.
A lot more consistent.
Way more consistent, way more predictable, which is really helpful for not getting randomly one shot.
Our favorites, those.
Yeah. And then finally, on difficulty, we have some changes to standard difficulty tiers. We know some of you guys are looking for a challenge, so let's take a look at what a challenge looks like. All right, so we have a level 1 character here in Yugioh going to the statue to change their difficulty.
They got 200 Paragon
what
points
are they
on
going to
level 1.
change it to? Well, before they could access normal, hard, and expert, but now they can access penitent at level 1.
That's mode we only play. Yeah.
Why would you play anything else?
Yes. So you have to beat the base campaign on your account once, and then you can go into penitence, and let's see how that turns out for this person. Oh yeah,
I'm sure it's
just
going
an
great.
Helltide.
Just a few a few too many demons.
Just a couple few too many demons. Yeah.
Mythic uniques.
So, so you can do penitence at level 1 now.
Okay, that's
It's
good.
pretty hard, guys. So if you plan to go in at level 1, be prepared. But seriously, we know people really wanted to be able to push their builds as far as they could, as early as they could.
Yeah.
And
That's
now you
good.
can. So
'Cause
whenever
before
you feel like
you
you're ready
couldn't
for
unlock it,
penitent
but
during your leveling
most
journey,
people probably
hop
won't
in
want to
there
go on
and
that
see how you
difficulty.
do.
Yeah, I know that was like one of the biggest points of feedback we got during this PTR, which was like, hey, we would like to see if Penitent wasn't like gated way further down the line and if it could be brought in. So it's now available at level 1. And you know, as we've shown in the footage, it can be difficult, but I think what's nice is like if someone creates alts and they end up, you know, finding a bunch of mythic uniques and stuff which you can use at earlier levels, you then can at least potentially start off in Penitent a little bit earlier and you know, stay with a higher difficulty in that type of way, which is nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We really want to embrace like the sort of choose your difficulty that we really liked with the mine cages in season 5, 4, and 5. And again, like to your point, alts just are able to speed run their way to max level by playing at a really hard difficulty.
Exactly.
So it should feel a lot better.
And it feels great to just hop into penitent early, like when you're capable of doing it.
does,
It's
yeah.
just awesome.
Yeah, we don't
we got some more
necessarily
legendaries?
expect
Itemization
everyone to play
changes?
at
Oh.
Penitent. It's really hard to play at
It
your
is hard.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to really
you
play
need,
on
your
that.
character needs to be pretty
Unless
pretty
you're
good.
doing some sort of challenge to play on it.
All right, let's talk about some itemization changes. So we got a lot of feedback that once you got to max level,
now it's
and you were starting that ancestral grind, you were stuck with these non-ancestral
can't even go to
items
12.
for a pretty long
So
time. And
this is
we do
actually
like
pretty
that, but we know that people want to
screenshot this
see
for-
the journey for those non-ancestral items to be a little punchier. And so we've made some targeted changes here to ensure that non-ancestral legendaries have more, punch to them. So we've increased the amount of masterworking you can put on a non-ancestral legendary from 4 to 8. We are also allowing them to be tempered twice. Previously, both of those values were exclusive to ancestral items, but now non-ancestrals can go up to that. Additionally, we saw that people were going to like the boss ladder, or they were just finding uniques out in the world. And
Wait,
they
they
didn't
tripled-
it didn't feel like they were dropping as
Triple
ancestral
ancestral.
as often as they should have.
Right, 'cause they're so rare.
That's
Right,
crazy.
they're so rare.
3
and,
times.
You want finding a unique,
that's still
unique
good.
item to be an exciting moment, and so we've tripled the chance for them to drop as ancestral. And this should help a lot, especially during the boss ladder. You know, when you're killing these uber bosses and they're dropping lots of uniques, a lot more of them are going to turn out to be ancestral.
Definitely. And this should mean that once you're starting in around level 60, you have a lot more progression on your equipment that sort of bridges the gap to ancestral. We also heard a lot of feedback that second tempered affix really is what enables your build to come online. And that's what we're trying to do with this system of ancestral, is that you can get your build online, but then there's still items that you can chase that just enhance that build.
Right.
And we saw that like not having that second tempered affix and not having those 8 masterwork ranks really sort of hindered your ability to get that build online.
It's so hard to
get into
masterwork
the
to
fun
8
and start
anyways, to be
blasting.
honest.
Yeah, no,
Because
that's
the material
a great
cost
point,
is
because
too
we don't
high
want
in
you
the
to feel
earlier
like you
stages.
have to find ancestrals for your build to function.
Hopefully that will also be fixed.
And you know, this change is working towards making that true.
Definitely. So you still have those items you can.
Oh, we're
chase,
doing
but you
another
can still
build,
get
Nick.
those endgame builds online pretty quickly.
I'll be dropping
Yep,
it very soon
sure.
with gameplay. 'Cause
And
we
finally,
can't
on
upload
itemization,
gameplay yet.
we are adding some scrolls of restoration to the
But I'll
season
have
journey.
new gameplay early
the
for the
scrolls
new
of
build.
restoration are the scrolls of tempering that we talked about at Gamescom. You can use them to reset the tempering chances on an item. And we wanted to add these to the season journey so you could just have a
final
couple
two
of
stages.
deterministic ways to acquire them and use them on your gear.
And this, of course, is not the only place you can earn these scroll of restorations.
No,
You
no.
know, you can
these are gonna
earn
be
them
super
throughout
rare.
the world. There's a small drop chance, and we'll be actually talking about another way of earning them later on as well.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that I'm excited about on the unique changes, if you equate greater affixes in Season 5 to Ancestral,
Yeah.
you're actually going to have a higher chance to get an Ancestral unique compared to getting a greater affix on a unique than live, right?
Right,
So it means
yeah.
that uniques are really exciting. You might actually get like the Staff of Endless Rage, for example. Maybe you're not playing a Fireball Sork, but now you're like, oh, well, I have an Ancestral version of this
That's
unique.
huge.
Obviously.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so it
Time to go
really like
Fireball.
kind of gets you to experiment a little bit more, and we really like that aspect about those uniques sometimes being a lot more powerful.
Yeah, no, it's we want that moment when you see a unique on the ground to be really fun and exciting, and seeing it drop as an ancestral with greater affixes is about as exciting as it gets for uniques. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's talk about some player power changes based on PTR feedback. So I want to start by framing our goals for Torment difficulties. So Torment 1, we want all content to be available in the game. You can fight Lilith, you can fight the boss ladder, you can go to the Dark Citadel, etc. All these activities are available. Torment 4 is intended to be aspirational content. And what that means is you've already unlocked everything in the game when you enter Torment 1. But Torment 4 is like the essence of Diablo, like build crafting, where you're just pushing your character as far as you can go. And Torment 4 exists for that purpose, for people who want to push their character as far as they can go. And with that said, and the reason why I'm saying this is because we were seeing that people were getting to Torment 4 way faster
Wait,
and way easier than we were hoping for.
They
in
moved
PTR.
back the main
And,
stat.
which is just another great.
Okay, that's
it's
a
great
big
that we did the
surprise.
PTR.
That makes
We saw that.
Barbarian better.
And with that all said,
Wow,
we've made some
okay.
changes to kind of keep Torment 4 this, really challenging and exciting thing to reach.
Because Barb's the only class that did not get that buff.
We've reverted the skill damage bonus from main stat back to what it was in Season 5. So we had actually doubled it in the PTR, but we found that was just giving players too much power.
Too much.
So we sent it back. And we also pulled back on Legendary Glyph power a bit. Colin, you wanna
Oh,
talk about
wait,
that?
additive
So
multiple
we
of damage
reduced the scaling on the glyphs
significantly
quite a bit
reduced.
because we found that it was really devaluing a lot of the aspect rolls or rolls on your gear. Like when you're
Mega
getting 2,000
nerf,
added
man.
damage from the glyph, it's
Mega.
really hard to actually feel anything on your gear through tempering or through those affix that are dropping. So essentially what we've done is pare that back. We've redistributed it. We'll cover that a little bit on like where we put some of that power. But overall, we think this feels a lot better. Glyphs aren't just carrying like 80% of your power on a build. And it just feels a lot better so that it doesn't feel as sort of mandatory that I have to get all 5 glyphs and level them up to actually be pushing difficulty.
Yeah.
It's a lot more
What?
about what are
You
the
don't-
aspects you have.
You
what are the
don't
uniques
need
you
to
have,
get your
what are
glyphs
the
up.
nodes you're actually getting on the Paragon board.
Yep.
I think it feels a lot better.
Yeah, and like I think one of the important things to
I don't
say
know
about
about that.
this is
I gotta
it's
test that
really
out. There's
awesome to
no
get a
way.
tremendous
I'll
amount
update
of
you guys
power
soon
from
on it,
one
but I
source,
can't talk
but
about
because
it
there
until
are so many
2 more
different
days.
sources of power in the game. If one source gives too much power, it makes the other sources feel kind of unimportant.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. So we want to make sure that every source of power in the game is contributing to your build in very meaningful ways.
Yeah.
And so this change is helping other sources of power feel really punchy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
awesome. I know tons of changes here with player power. Tons of changes with like progression, including difficulty and itemization. Do we have anything else on progression? Or
I think one thing I think that's really important to touch on is the torment goals here, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a definite fundamental shift from Season 5 in that you think about World Tier 3 into World Tier 4 and you're sort of racing to get to World Tier 4 as fast as possible because that's where all the best items can drop.
Yeah.
And we've sort of just changed that to Torment 1 is where all the best items can drop. It's where everything unlocks. But essentially Torment 2, 3, and 4 increase the odds of those things happening. So it's just efficiency, right?
Yep.
We don't necessarily want to say you must get to Torment 4 to experience the game or to get the best drops in the game, similar to World Tier 4 and Season 5. It's a very different feeling. So we're excited to see how that plays out, and we want to sort of see what you all think as well.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, all of the content, all of the best gear can be found in Torment 1. So if that's where your build feels most comfortable farming, that's great. You can still achieve all your goals.
That just means you have to grind way harder.
You get a reward for pushing this harder difficulty by more efficiency.
Yeah, and that's like what affords Torment 4 the means to, or like the space to be really hard.
Definitely.
Is because you don't have to get there, and so it can be really, really challenging. And some players really
Torment
love
1 through 3 useless.
awesome.
I mean, that's pretty much facts, man.
Awesome.
If you don't get the highest drop rate,
the next topic we want to talk about is some of the big system changes that are actually coming with Vessel of Hatred, and also changes that we're applying post PTR from things that we actually learned. Colin, you want to walk us through and start us off with some of the Paragon stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we got a ton of feedback from the PTR, and we took a look at Paragon. That was one of the bigger changes.
Yeah, potion healing! The thing is, just needs to be deleted,
that gives us a lot more space to increase.
It says useless as life per second.
Choice more about
life on hit in this game. It's literally
so
a
what
no
we've
stat.
done here is we've added a bunch of normal nodes, so those are things like stats that empower those glyphs to upgrade that legendary glyph radius. We added them. It was kind of sad, like there weren't actually a lot of nodes to flesh it out and sort of build up that Paragon, that extra glyph range that you're going to get from upgrading it to legendary. So we've done that. We added around 8 to every board, and then the starting board, I think we went to like 12 or something like that, just because the starting board should feel really good with that first glyph. The next thing we've done is we've taken a look at a lot of the rare and magic nodes, and we've just made them generically more useful. So you think about like two-handed bludgeoning damage on the barbarian is like, okay, like I guess I can only benefit if I'm doing this one very specific thing. And we've just opened that up to say damage, right? That's going to scale everything across your character as opposed to like while you're doing this sort of obscure thing.
Yep, blue and rare.
So we think that feels a lot better. We've also just sort of taken a look at what are the affixes we're giving, like fucking potion healing. I know you're all going to be really sad.
That's my favorite stuff.
I know you're all super sad to see
You're
that
the only one,
we've taken potion healing out, but we've just changed it to healing received. We've also just taken a look at things like damage reduction from dots and made it damage reduction. So it should be a lot more generically useful, and those boards should feel a lot more punchy and open-ended, which we really like. And that's sort of doubling down on the spirit of what we've done with Season 4 itemization, right? Just sort of taking back some of these conditional things that aren't necessarily adding a ton of value to your build identity, just opening things up. And then the next thing we've done is we talked about redistributing some of the power on those glyphs, and we've taken a look at all of our nodes, all of magic and rare nodes, and we've just buffed all of them. So we've doubled all the additive bonuses on rare and magic nodes. We've increased the damage reduction values by about 1.5x, so they should feel a lot more chunky.
What I think is interesting is they nerfed all the glyphs, but then they also buffed the Paragon board by double.
Every glyph, socket, and every legendary.
It's like they just moved the power.
Some pretty punchy like damage.
It generally doesn't make sense.
Damage reduction sources you can get. We've also done things like all the resistance nodes you have on the Paragon board actually give max resistance as well now. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of changes there. So this is one of the first steps we're taking to really improve the Paragon system with the new sort of philosophy of like, we want you to pick what boards you want. And we expect to be updating more in the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that this harkens back to what we were just saying, which is that, it's really fun for all of your sources of power to be meaningful. And so we're basically just taking like the tons and tons of power that was in glyphs and kind of slightly redistributing it to Paragon. So going through your Paragon board is just more interesting and fun.
Definitely. Cool.
Next up, we got, I think, Infernal Hordes.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you remember, Infernal Hordes was under construction during the PTR as we were fitting in, like, how does this going to work with the greater equipment chest, turning into ancestral items. And there are 3 things that we really wanted to tackle as a part of this release, right? Infernal Hordes is an eternal game mode, so we wanted to take the learnings we got from Season 5 and apply it to this next update. So one of the things we saw was that loot was just dominating the reward
so the
landscape
council
here.
boss always drops.
Getting
That's
200
good.
legendaries from one source of activity is cool for Season 5, and it's the brand new activity for Season 5. That's awesome. We wanted to just readjust it, refit it back in. We still have the Codex of Power that lets you store all these legendary powers, so we felt like we wanted to take more of a quality over quantity approach here. And one of the things that was sort of frustrating about that quality miss was that you didn't really have a way to reliably target those unique items that were coming out of Infernal Hordes. If you think about it, you had to open a chest and just hope that you were going to get one of the unique items out of this chest. And that sort of led to a frustrating and tedious reward flow where you're just constantly opening up these 28th chests over and over and over. I know I've spent, probably more time opening the material chest than actually...
I mean, I think that's everyone's favorite pastime of just like running around the material chest.
Putting the cooldown on the chest, like, oh my god, just give me my fucking shit. So it takes forever. So we've taken a look at, how we're going to actually deliver these keys. We've taken them out of the crafting system, but they're not too rare. They're just uncommonly found throughout the world. We want this to be like an oh shit moment when the key drops, just because you're going to get a ton of XP from killing the hordes. You're going to get a ton of materials and a ton of items as well. So we think that will make the keys feel a lot more interesting, and it's not going to bloat your inventory as much, and you really want to use them when you get them. So the next part here is, if we could go back to the slide, if we could go to Infernal Hordes.
Infernal Hordes. There we go.
The council boss, no matter what, as long as you kill that council, they're going to drop dungeon boss loot, which is going to be legendaries, crafting materials, gold, etc., on top of the Infernal Horde unique items, and that's going to scale with Torment. So guaranteed, every single time you kill that council, you are going to get unique items that are specific to Infernal Hordes.
That's great, because those Infernal Horde uniques are pretty sick.
Definitely. So no more waiting at
But
the
no,
chest.
buff the crown of Lucius.
It's going to happen, and it feels a lot more like the boss ladder, where it's like, okay, I want to get Infernal Horde unique items. I'm going to be able to reliably get those and get a pull at the sort of slot machine there. And then the next thing here is we've updated the chests. So the chests of greater equipment are going to drop those scrolls of restoration or retempering.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to be able to get them reliably from the Infernal Hordes, not just the Dark Citadel. And that should feel pretty meaty and good. And then we've also guaranteed some amount of ancestral items from that greater equipment chest. And ancestral items are very much more coveted than just greater affix items. So that should feel pretty meaty. And then the chest of materials is now just going to convert all your Aether into materials. You don't have to constantly open the chest.
Just click on it once and it uses everything.
Turn it into a bunch of masterworking materials, gems. It should feel a lot more snappy and less time looting, more time playing. And the gold chest is the same.
Yeah, because it just gives you punch.
Next up, I know we have the reward stuff. We kind of spoiled it. So we can just skip this because everyone's already seen it. So rewards, this is just a bunch of miscellaneous tuning and making the game feel better and more rewarding. Right? So we've significantly increased the ancestral drop rate from Nightmare Dungeons and Whispers. Thank you to the person who ran 1,000 Nightmare Dungeons.
Oh my god.
Definitely fixed the problem there, and that should feel a lot more rewarding. We've also added just experience to the Nightmare Dungeon completion.
Oh, that's really good.
Feels better as
non-legendary items are auto-salvaged. So
like
blue items shouldn't drop anymore, right?
And we've also done miscellaneous buffs to just miscellaneous things. So Hellborn will drop loot. Butcher is going to drop a guaranteed axe, I believe.
That's good.
Axe. The World Boss, Treasure Goblins, those are all going to drop a lot better loot. It's also going to scale with
the
Torment,
Butcher's axe is actually not even that bad. It's kind of underrated.
These, I guess the Hellborn's not exactly a random encounter, not just the World Boss, but the Butcher and the Treasure Goblin, these big meaty encounters, it makes sense for these to occur, and you're give me good loot, because this is uncommon. This doesn't happen that frequently. I want it to be amazing.
It's an exciting moment, and the loot should reflect that.
I love that loot explosion.
Well, he said he loved the loot explosion, but they deleted it
Treasure Goblin
in the game.
5.
What?
Yeah, just chasing it around using your basic attack.
And it
the tormented bosses do not have pinatas anymore, unless they're going to announce another change
The next thing here is we really love how players, or how you all have sort of embraced the Stronghold experience bonus. We've actually just done that across the game, so campaign feels really good in terms of experience granted.
1.25 levels.
Should feel really good, especially in the Hunt 2.
Remember, level 60 is max
the Stronghold experience in the PTR
10 levels in total?
2 levels felt a little bit aggressive and sort of forced you to do
dude, I would just keep it.
We've just pared that back down to 1.25 levels, which is still really meaty. You're getting an entire level from doing these. It's really fulfilling what we had hoped Strongholds were going to provide, which is an alternative means to level. If you want to ride around the open world and do a bunch of Strongholds, that's absolutely a viable
But you can
way
only
to
do them
level up
once.
We think that all the quest content in general just feels a lot better because they're a lot more generous there. The other change I'll note here is that a bulk of that experience is going to be from killing the boss, and it's a first-time reward. So that means you're not going to be able to sort of, cheese running strongholds over and over and over.
Thank you, Rax, for showing that with your friends from your chat that did that in 20 minutes. We
World record.
Watched.
Hey, it was a good video. I mean, in all fairness.
Cool. And then the next one here is we heard a ton of feedback that rare and magic items just felt like they're adding a lot of noise to Torment. We're dropping a lot more of them. Now they just get auto-salvaged in Torment. Hooray.
Get them out of here.
Yeah, get them out. And then the next one is just a nice quality of life. The Paragon glyphs now drop from the pit.
So
you're getting a bunch of pit
legendary
runs. You're also
items
going to
drop.
be getting glyphs. It just means you don't really have to go out and do other things if you have a bunch of keys for the pit.
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice too, because, theoretically you could enter the pit and not actually have a glyph, but now you will, so you can find one and level up if that's what happens.
Awesome, and I know, last but not least, we have kind of itemization crap. This is some big stuff here that I know will excite players for sure.
Yeah, so one of the things we've heard a ton.
Well, you get
from
a random
the
ancestral.
player base and you all
2
is that,
sparks gets you a mythic.
I wish I could make a mythic unique deterministically. If I do everything in a season, if I kill Uber Lilith, if I do the season's journey, I want to be able to get a mythic unique. And we saw this as an opportunity to essentially create an identity between the rune crafting of mythic uniques and the blacksmith. We moved it from the alchemist to the blacksmith version of crafting mythic uniques. So now what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to take 2 resplendent sparks to the blacksmith and get a random mythic unique. That means no matter what, as long as you do everything in the season, you're going to get a mythic unique. And if you take those resplendent sparks and you decide, I really want a specific mythic unique, you'll be able to take a set of runes and actually pick which one.
Right.
And what that does is the runes are a lot more flexible. They can be traded. You can also get some incremental.
So you basically can trade mythic
uniques
then.
Wow. Mythic unique or sparks in general. So what this means is you now have 2 really clear means to sort of target mythic uniques, and you now have a guaranteed way to make a mythic unique at the end of a season, which we think will feel really good.
Something that's kind of cool about that is that it gives runes this intrinsic trade value, which I kind of love.
Yeah.
Like they have this big purpose towards crafting one of the best items in the game, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I finally can get my Starless Skies.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. And then the next one here is you're going to be getting a lot of salvage in Torment, because everything's getting auto-salvaged. So
Yeah,
we
it's going to be
figured,
very nice.
we should probably give you some purpose and value to that salvage. And now you can take it to the blacksmith and forge random legendary equipment at the blacksmith.
Yeah, this is huge.
I love this change.
And it also has a chance to be unique.
All
or
really good
mythic,
changes.
And sometimes ancestral. So
One sec.
it's definitely a great place to dump all that excess salvage that you have. And then the next one here is more just sort of a quality of life and nicety. We added runes, and we're putting way more sockets on gear.
Yeah.
We've just allowed you to add sockets to gear with just the general salvage material. You don't need scattered prisms anymore. Scattered prisms are required for ancestral items, and that just essentially means, I'm missing a socket. You can easily add one. And then the next one here is mostly quality of life for alt characters, but the jeweler no longer has a level requirement to engage with the jeweler. Previously on the PTR, you had to trade gear to your main character, add a socket. It was super tedious, and we just made it not like that.
Awesome. So tons of big changes coming across a multitude of systems within D4, thanks to a lot of great feedback that we got from all the players within the community, content creators, etc. So thank you guys so much for that. Thank you, Colin, for walking us through that. Next up, we want to talk about some of the class changes and everything. And
okay.
Charles here is going to walk us through it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about some of the class changes that we saw in the PTR. Once again, I wanted to thank all of the players who gave a lot of detailed feedback, a lot of data on how classes were performing, all the different builds, and the new items, new effects, and all that kind of stuff, new skills. It's been really helpful in helping to make sure that we make all our class designs as fun and engaging as possible. I do want to say that this patch is huge. There's lots of changes. As I said, a lot of new class stuff, but a lot of new system stuff across the whole game. And so we do expect some level of volatility here, and when a lot of things change, there's a lot of unknowns, and so that's just the mindset we're approaching this patch with. And what I'm going to be talking about here is not a complete detailed list of everything that we've changed from the PTR to live. It's just kind of some samples and kind of talking through our
with patch notes
and what
hopefully
we
today
saw
too.
on the class design team and what we're thinking about. And so make sure you check out the full patch notes once we're done with the stream. And also, if you, a lot of the changes came in the PTR initially, so definitely check out those if you're unfamiliar, because there's tons of class changes there as well.
Oh, yeah, dude, the
So,
video is like
with the
an
Barbarian,
hour-long patch notes.
We generally saw the Barbarian class was a little bit too weak on the PTR, and I think even on Season 5, I think it's generally considered a little too weak. Historically, though, it's been one of our stronger classes, but you know, in recent seasons, it's fallen a little bit on harder times. So a lot of our focus here is buffs to some underutilized skills and legendaries and uniques. So we've got updates to Upheaval to make it just a little bit more punchy, hits a little bit harder. We've got updates to some of the uniques that talk to other core skills, like Hammer of the Ancients and Double Swing, to give them a little bit more damage boost as well. And finally, there's a buff to the Martial Vigor passive. That is a passive in the skill tree that gives you some damage reduction from elite enemies, including bosses. And it might seem pretty small on paper, it's just 4% to 6%, but for every skill rank you have in that, you get that much more. And really, when you're fighting the late game tormented bosses and high torment tiers, it's going to be a pretty noticeable amount of survivability against those boss fights for barbarians.
Yeah, those passive skills add up really quickly when you start getting a bunch of ranks in them and stuff, so for sure.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Druid, we also think the
there's
Druid
there's no
was a little
nerfs,
bit on
right?
the weaker end of the classes.
They didn't nerf the
I think
thorns.
there's a few
They
bugs
didn't
on
announce
the PTR
any
that
nerfs.
we're addressing as we go live, where some of their effects, specifically in the Paragon, and some of the key passives weren't quite working exactly how we intended. So they might have been a little bit weaker due to that on the PTR specifically. So we're definitely addressing those. I also wanted to talk about Nature's Fury. This is a key passive that whenever you cast an Earth or Storm skill, there's a chance to cast the same skill to cast a skill of the opposite type. And this was causing some unintended interactions with one of the unique items, the Earthbreaker ring, that ended up proccing or triggering Nature's Fury way more often than we intended.
Rip Druid,
that's because
Druid
we have
nerf.
this concept of casts, where you actually need to press the button and then, hey, you did one cast. And whenever we do something like auto casts, which is like, hey, I triggered a free skill with Nature's Fury, that shouldn't kind of recursively trigger or trigger the other effects that are looking for casts.
Crone still wasn't
in that particular
enough.
interaction, it
I
was,
tried
and
that.
so we've
It's
fixed
still
that
bad.
interaction, but then thrown some pretty big buffs to those items and the things affected in that build. We still expect those.
Where's the
kind of things,
rabies
especially
buffs?
landslide builds that use this a lot to still be very powerful builds going forward. But we just didn't want that one particular unintended interaction.
Oh, Lust for Carnage isn't bad,
And that kind of
actually.
overshines, all the builds, right? When you have like one build that's, crazy over, the top. So
Exactly, yeah. Especially whenever there's one build that's so dominant, that it really makes it feel like, hey, I'm playing the class wrong if I'm not doing this, and that's not something that we want. We want you to be able to play all the different ways of playing the classes and feel like it's a valid and viable choice to compete or to complete the game.
So basically, you want to play
Some of the other
Werewolf
changes
with
on
crit.
Druid as well. We've got some updates to Great Staff of the Crone. This is one of my favorite items that lets your Claw and Storm Strike build kind of synergize really nicely. We've got just a lot more damage on Werewolf skills through the Lust for Carnage Paragon node. Basically the same functionality, but just added 50% bonus damage there.
Here's just 50x. Like, that's so
particularly
massive,
falling
though.
behind. And an update to the Untamed Legendary Paragon node. This is the new one that talks to companion skills. Previously, it just gave skill ranks, which kind of fell off as you got a lot of skill ranks. Now it's just multiplicative damage, and I'm really looking forward to seeing
Companion Druid.
druids.
I want to make a
Season
Wolf
feature
Army
with the
Druid
new key
again.
passive.
Maybe be kind of
All right,
fun.
moving on to the Necromancer. So the Necromancer is a class that I think we saw a lot of variety for like blood, bone, and shadow builds. A lot of
Blood
those
Wave
were
is the
competing very
new
well.
thing.
But a Necromancer is really all about minions, right? And unfortunately, we saw
get
minion
some
builds
good
really
minion
falling
buffs.
behind.
Yeah,
from
dude,
where
they're
we want.
so bad
And we know
now.
that minion builds are like the most appealing part of a Necromancer.
Yep.
And so on the class design team, we're really committed to making sure that minion Necromancer is good. And we're going to, see some massive buffs to this patch, and we're going to continue monitoring to make sure that, the minion fantasy is really a powerful and compelling one. We also saw that Necromancer was one of the squishier classes. It had a little bit less defensive oomph than we really wanted. And so we've made some updates here to Reap. It's going to give a little bit longer damage reduction, just makes that a little bit more usable for that function. Same with Necrotic Fortitude, gives a little bit more barrier. This is kind of a passive barrier generation, so just a little bit more survivability in that late game. And then the rest of it here is just talking about minion buffs, right? We've got Kalen's Edict, the key passive. This is going to, previously it just gave you attack speed for your minions. Now it's also going to give you bonus multiplicative damage for all your minions.
Okay.
A bunch of the legendaries and uniques that talked to minions, like Ring of Mendeln and Shade Mist, that damage is now properly attributed to your minions rather than the Necromancer themselves, which means if you have bonus Golem damage, for instance, and your Golem triggers Ring of Mendeln, it's now going to benefit properly, and it's going to be multiplied up by those multipliers.
Okay.
So
hopefully minions will be
pretty big
much
buffs
better
for those legendaries and uniques.
Yeah, that's a lot of power for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Moving on, we've got next class, we'll talk about the Rogue. I think the Rogue in general was performing pretty well across the board in the PTR. I think we got a lot of positive feedback.
Please no
Hey,
nerfs.
yeah, Rogue feels great. I just,
Spin to win.
Yes, spin to win.
Yeah, but
Dance of
can we
Knives
keep
skill
it-
in particular?
Yeah, can we keep the Dance of Knives
was
with
really
it in
happy
view?
with where
That's
Dance of Knives
big question.
landed. As the new skill, it found a lot of use in a variety of builds, and people have a lot of fun playing with it. We did notice a little bit of the melee focused builds with Flurry and Twisting Blades falling behind just a little bit. So a few of our changes here are focused on enhancing the legendaries that talk to those two, Encircling Blades and Blade Dancers. In terms of key passives, we saw Victimize did have a bug that caused its damage scaling to be higher than intended. And so we have fixed that math calculation on how it kind of scales damage based on other damage. Because it was really just a little bit too dominant. And now we think with this update, it'll still be a competitive choice, but it won't completely outshine every other key passive on the Rogue. And some nice little buffs here to Rain of Arrows, just to make it work a little bit better with imbuement skills. Love me some Rain of Arrows. It's a very flashy skill, especially with all those colors with the imbuements on it. All right, and finally, the Sorcerer. The Sorcerer was definitely the strongest class I think we saw on the PTR by a fair margin.
Just a little bit,
It was quite strong. People were having a lot of fun with Sorcerer builds, especially with the new key passive Enlightenment. And Enlightenment had an issue where it's all about alternating skill casts. So, okay, you cast a fire skill, you cast a lightning skill, you cast a cold skill, and you get these stacks really quickly. Unfortunately, it was stacking up unintentionally from some of those auto casts that we were talking about earlier with Nature's Fury, where when you trigger bonus casts from like unstable currents, it was actually ramping up the Enlightenment way too fast. And so we fixed that interaction, but we think despite that, Enlightenment is still one of the strongest key passives of Sword.
Yeah.
So it's just brings it down a little
Sword
bit.
didn't have a good
but
key
we still
pass.
think this is going to be a really powerful and compelling new key passive to play with once we go live. Two other changes here with the Flame Scar and Oculus uniques. This is kind of adding in this chance to deal double damage affixes for Incinerate and Teleport respectively. This harkens back to what I talked about on the PTR stream, where we're adding these multiplicative damage bonuses into tempering for weapons. And of course, we can't temper onto unique items, but for a lot of the unique items that are about very specific skills, such as Flame Scar and Oculus, we've taken a pass to add in some of these affixes that enhance those skills in multiplicative ways to really make sure that Incinerate gets the same benefit from using that unique as opposed to just a legendary that you would temper this affix onto anyway.
It's a massive buff.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely massive.
Size is like, I had to like pull out a ruler. Like, is it actually?
Is it working?
Yeah. Incinerate size and Teleport size maybe not the most compelling affix. Now you just get some of this multiplicative damage. If somebody wants to make an Oculus build where most of the damage comes from Teleport, that's going to be awesome. We'll see if you can manage to make that work.
I'll be honest, I tried it. It's still pretty rough.
Page saved.
Even with double damage,
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be top
so
tier.
yeah,
But
once again,
I
I
hope
just
I'm
want
wrong.
to thank everyone for all the great feedback.
Is that it?
We on the class design team in particular are always reading and listening to feedback on how you're playing the classes, what builds you're finding fun, what things are over or underpowered. We listen to it, we read your feedback, we watch the videos that you make. We really appreciate all of it, and it really helps us to make the game as best as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles, for walking us through all the changes coming for class design. It's actually not all the changes that we saw right here. As Charles mentioned,
we
do
big
have patch notes actually
I'll
going
make a
live
separate video,
after
but we're
the
at like
stream.
44 minutes.
And I will caveat, you will see 2.0.1 patch notes, and you'll see 2.0.
All right, what I'm going to do for this like YouTube video though is I'm going to go ahead and cut this part right now because we're probably going to be talking about some sort of like other endgame activities and stuff. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit short. Well, at least it's 44 minutes here, but we'll do this for part 1 and I'll upload more if there needs to be. But it looks like they're probably signing out of this part.